Vakebi leaned over the railing near the Bokairo Inn, looking at the Shiokaze holstery. With the mission in Kugane at an end, she and Underfoot had returned to Kugane to collect Jack, though he seemed keen to see a bit more of the city before his triumphant return. The three of them had free rein for a day, enough time to recover for Aetheryte travel back, and rooms to themselves to relax in comfort to see that it happened.
Say this bleeding huge and he gives us a day? Does he not have any sense of adventure? We're half a world away from home.
She tossed the room key idly with one hand. The long wooden attachment marked it for the inn's property, with the room number engraved on the side, but it was long enough that the rogue absent-mindedly began tossing it like one of her daggers. Underfoot had set off immediately with Jack to see some sights, and their prime recruit, the Warrior of Light, was already off on her next adventure outside of the city, but Vakebi immediately set off for the food stalls. Having only dabbled in Hingashi cuisine so far, she knew there was plenty more left to try, and, of course, mingling with the townsfolk was bound to turn up an adventure or two of a different sort. Sadly, a few hours and several food stalls tried, and Vakebi was quite sated on one goal, but no closer to the desired second one.
I believe the phrase is, "a gill for your thoughts,"
a soft voice said from over her shoulder. The stray whipped around, one hand moving to a hidden dagger, but part of her recognized the voice before she made contact with it. With her free hand, she simply shook her fist with frustration at Tsubame. Standing before her in the kimono she seemed to serve as a casual outfit for her.
All right, you got me. 7 hells, you ninjas are even quieter than the most even-footed rogue.
Tsubame chuckled.
In fairness, you did seem rather distracted, though I suppose I may step with the shadows, even in my free time.
She brushed her short hair behind one ear and joined Vakebi at the railing.
So, not enjoying your time in Kugane?
Vakebi relaxed her position and slumped back onto the rail.
It ain't that. The city's beautiful, food's amazing. Just feels like I don't have enough time to take it all in properly. Possibly hoping for an encounter similar to the one with the Warrior of Light?
Tsubame guessed. Vakebi initially thought to protest, but shrugged instead.
Is it so much to ask for? I'm sure such happenings do occur, but I would guess it's not going to be quite as common as it was in Eorzea, especially with only one day to test your luck.
Tsubame mused.
You miss her then?
Guessing she told ya a lot while studying under ya lot. Vakebi sighed.
Nah, we agreed long ago that going our separate ways would work out best. But it was fun while it lasted, and there haven't been a lot of bonny lasses that can compare. Besides, she was chattering like a lark about some new flame out here she might have when her mission with the Empire gives her pause. What? All the way in Othard?
Tsubame asked.
Quite the commitment. But she's a beast with how much she can use the Aetherites. I'm sure she'll be fine.
Vakebi turned the topic to Tsubame.
What about you then? You and Oboro a thing, or?
Tsubame smiled.
Our relationship is strictly professional. Even besides my oath to serve him as a fellow shinobi, he's not quite the type I would see myself in a relationship with. Not that my duty allows me much time for such thoughts. Dodging what her type is. But she already knows mine, so maybe. Shame. A woman needs a few thrilling adventures in her life, outside of the kind where you use your stabbers.
Tsubame chuckled and bowed to the Mikote.
While I can't promise you quite the thrilling adventure you hope to find here, I would be happy to accompany you around the city, if you would have me.
Vakebi looked her over once again, unsure of how to respond. The bowing and such was still unusual to her, but she knew enough to at least mimic the response in kind, even if the nuance was lost on her. As they rose, though, Vakebi got a good look into the Doma woman's calm, brown eyes, and found herself lost for a moment.
Did I never get a good look at her before? Or is something different about her today?
With a sheepish grin, She decided to respond as naturally as she could.
Well, a fair lady did just cross my path, which is what I was waiting for. Such flattery,
Tsubame chuckled.
I suppose for such, I can treat you to a few of my favorite locales. Let us be off then.
Tsubame insisted that their first stop be to the clothiers to allow the Mikote to travel around in more local fashion, and took her to a place far removed from the Ruby Bazaar. According to Tsubame, the bazaar had a large variety of goods, it was true, but profit often came before quality there. The humble shop she recommended was called Titania, a maker of not only Hingan fashion, but evidently Eorzean fashion as well. And while it normally took some time to fashion even a simple kimono, there was one already apparently fit for someone roughly Vakebi's build.
I'd give me the rub. Wasn't a coincidence that you picked that stall, was it?
Vakebi asked as an older woman inside helped her with the various ties and belts the garment had. Tsubame held a hand in front of her face.
Ah, a shinobi secret. Sorry,
she said with a smirk.
Come off it! I saw you slip a paper to the salesman,
Vakebi cried, though her emphatic gestures earned a sharp correction of her posture by the assistant and a stern look.
Sorry, miss,
she said to the woman.
Consider it a gift. It is not quite your normal colors, admittedly, but you look wonderful in it,
Tsubame said.
Now who's flattering?
Vakebi looked herself over in the nearby mirror. True, the dark indigo wasn't much of her style, but the wave designs in lighter blue did remind her of Limsa, so it wasn't terribly off from what she might wear. If anything, though, the color reminded her of...
Wait a damn minute,
Vakebi muttered, but Tsubame winked and shushed her with a finger.
Figures the craftswoman already has connections even here. Oh well, free kimono, I suppose.
She'd still have to find a way to thank her former apprentice. Clad in her new outfit, Tsubame gave her a more thorough and personalized tour of Kugane, including local culture and histories. Vakebi perked up at the mention of the geiko, but was quickly told that the company of them was often priced well out of most people's reach, as theirs was an art that took years of training to master, and as such would not entertain cheaply. Though disappointed, Tsubame made up for it with a visit to a more common theater in the Ruby Bazaar, and Vakebi quite enjoyed the witty stories of the play style Tsubame called rakugo. She didn't understand half of what the Jugemu story was about, but the farce of it all was evident enough to entertain. A tea-house visit and another meal later, and the sun was beginning to set, and the two made their way to the Bokairo Inn to make use of their bathhouse, making small talk along the way. Tsubame was aghast at hearing how much Vakebi had already managed to consume in her single day on the town, but the Mikote shrugged it off.
I stay active enough that a brief indulgence won't hurt, she said with a dismissive wave. And that's a problem for future Vakebi anyway. Present Vakebi wants to hit those hot springs one more time, and maybe find a nice nighttime view of the city.
Tsubame thought for a moment.
Someplace a bit more reserved and private, perhaps?
Vakebi smirked.
Well, I'm not gonna say no to some quiet time with the beautiful lass who just gave me a tour of the city. You had something in mind? There is a grand view available while partaking in the bathhouse,
Tsubame said.
It's not easily accessible, so we shinobi make frequent use of it, though a number of adventurers have evidently discovered it as of late.
And you can manage it and all that? Vakebi asked, looking her compatriot up and down.
Doesn't strike me as an outfit suitable for running about.
Tsubame chuckled.
I have thought wearing less suitable garb. A few jumps and climbs are hardly enough to slow me down in this. I'm more worried about your ability to do the same. So, do you want to see it?
Vakebi shifted to loosen the kimono bit around her legs and shoulders.
Well, now I feel like you challenged me. So lead on.
Tsubame looked to make sure the coast was clear, then hopped onto the nearby rooftop, easily accessible with the higher layout that Bokairo Inn was on compared to the nearby markets. She dashed off in a flash, and Vakebi was right behind her, though her steps felt uneven with the change to her legs' movement. Though they darted through the darkening city, with only lanterns for the streets below and the moon above providing any light, the two flitted from roof to roof, crossing on narrow ropes connecting the buildings. For a dutiful sister who had long since mastered the spiring towers of Limsa Laminsa, Vakebi wanted to say the challenge was trivial, but she had far less experience moving in this clothing. Tsubame, as expected, was jumping without a care. Seeing the lead the shinobi had, the Mikote grumbled and tugged up the bottom of the kimono to give her more room and rolled the sleeves. They didn't stay well in place, but it was enough to improve her jumps, at least, and nobody below seemed to be looking up. The roof gave way to a balcony for an upper floor of the inn, and Tsubame pressed on, nimbly jumping from outstretched beams, ascending the building ever higher. With renewed determination from her adjustment, the stray was quickly back on her heels and using her own knowledge of scaling buildings to leap and pull herself up. Within moments, Vakebi was climbing the final edge and pulled herself to the rooftop, where 2 steaming hot tubs were awaiting her, and not a soul in sight.
Oh, wonderful! We have them all to ourselves tonight,
Tsubame said, starting to undo her kimono. As the obi slipped off, she turned to her Mikote friend.
Ah, apologies. You are less accustomed to bathing with another, yes? Would you prefer I keep swimwear or something else on?
Vakebi grinned and tugged at her obi, quickly untying it to start a pile of clothes.
You'd not be the first pretty lady I've seen in less than small clothes, and seeing as no one's around, I figure it's as good a time as any to do as the locals do.
For all the griping she could do over the lack of movement the kimono afforded her, it was all worth it when she carefully slipped the shoulders off and let the weight of the garment pull itself to the ground. All the while, her eyes remained fixed on Tsubame, watching her reaction as her skin became exposed and shone in the moonlight. The shinobi was definitely transfixed on her. The small clothes she removed more slowly and made sure to fold and tidy the pile. When she was finished, she turned in all of her glory to Tsubame.
Well, aren't ye going to change?
She asked smugly.
Ah, pardon me, I was lost in thought,
Tsubame said, and more quickly removed her own clothes. And of course, Vakebi had her eyes glued as well, though Tsubame noticed in her fluster, she didn't show it. After rinsing off with buckets of water nearby, the 2 dipped into the tub, facing the city proper. Vakebi noted that Tsubame's eyes rarely left her for more than a moment during the entire process.
Ah, this is heaven,
Vakebi said as she sank into the water. After keeping her eyes closed for a moment to enjoy the sensation, she opened them to a full view of Kugane at night.
Gods, you weren't joking about the view. You can see most of the city from here.
She looked up and gazed at the sky.
The stars are so clear. And the moon. The moon is beautiful, isn't it?
Vakebi cried. Tsubame was quiet for a moment, then chuckled.
It's a good thing you don't know local idioms. That phrase has a slightly different connotation here.
Vakebi raised an eyebrow.
Some sort of poetry? A riddle?
Well, it's true. Best view I've seen in all of Kugane as far as I'm concerned. Appreciate you showing it to me and sticking with me. Makes it all the more enchanting when I have even more beautiful company. Tsubame waved off the compliment.
Again with the flattery. Hearing is one thing, but you are quite the lady killer, Vakebi.
I have my fun, it's true, but a liar or a flatterer, I'm not. If I tell you you're beautiful, it's because ye are. Vakebi put her arm on the back of the tub and slid closer to her companion.
And if I'm gonna be telling ye such things, it's because I truly wouldn't mind spending some more intimate time with ye. You truly mean it? Someone like me?
Tsubame asked, meekly.
Something's off in her tone, though, but I can't put my finger on it.
The warning in the back of her head didn't stop her flirting, and she moved to show her intent more directly.
Absolutely. The question is always whether someone is okay with a dove like me. Relationships are hard. I'll always be loyal to Jack and the crew, The sisters and limbs are on my home, and I believe in upholding the code to keep that home peaceful. It's a freeing life, but it's definitely not one that lets me settle down.
She remembered the looks on some of her dates, long in the past, before she had properly found the words for what she wanted.
Breaks a lot of hearts,
she said softly. As if on cue, clouds covered the moon, blanketing the tub in a wave of darkness.
I sympathize,
Tsubame said with a sigh.
Duty has also kept me from embracing such desires. But perhaps I should take a note of your life. Just to try it? No harm in trying, if you're honest with your partner and ready for the hurt it can cause,
she said with a renewed smile.
But if it turns out me style of relationships is to your liking, I would love to have ye.
Tsubame smiled calmly and looked into her companion's lavender eyes.
So it was not merely a game. You would truly wish to pursue this with me.
The Kebi turned and swung a leg around, placing it on the other side so that she straddled Tsubame. The ninja's eyes widened, but seemingly from the sudden movement more than being truly surprised. She couldn't blame her for that lack of true shock. They had been flirting while entirely naked for quite a while now. The water dripped off the rogue's body, and as the clouds passed by, the light of the full moon revealed the stray's full body once more. The Kebi brushed her fingers gently across Tsubame's cheek.
I told ye, I'm no liar. I'm always serious when I act on this.
She felt that warning sensation again, but was never given a chance to think on it. Suddenly, she felt a soft pressure on her side, and her every instinct told her to brace herself. And though she didn't need to bother. With a fluid motion she didn't quite catch the beginning of, she was gently but easily flipped back into the tub, and pushed back against the wall to her hands pinned to the wood, and Tsubame was looking down at her, triumphantly.
So that's the tingling I've been feeling all evening.
Tsubame leaned in and whispered softly into the Mikote's ear.
I may have neglected to mention whether I would like to be pursued for a relationship, or start the pursuit myself.
She drew ever closer, her voice low.
And when I plan my pursuit, I make sure to have the details of it well in hand.
Her lips brushed the Kebi's cheek, teasing her with their caress, but never quite making full contact. When a shudder ran down Vakebi's back, Tsubame pulled back slightly and murmured,
The moon truly is beautiful tonight. That line again. I'll have to remember to look that up. Damn riddles. 7 hells, you caught me off guard twice in one day. Though I can't say I'm complaining to see this side of ye.
Vakebi smirked as she struggled against the hold.
In fact, you give me a second, and I'll be around to showing ye a good time to match it. Very well then, my lustful rogue. I shall show you how skilled I can be off the battlefield as well.
Vakebi's heart beat faster. She was rarely in this position when it happened, but she knew this was the moment she, both of them as it turned out, had waited for. Before she could try to struggle against Tsubame's hold, however, the Doman woman was out of the tub, and an object dropped into Vakebi's lap in her place. But not here. She heard Tsubame's voice, though both she and her pile of clothes seemingly vanished in a blink. It wouldn't do to have a shinobi caught because her partner is too noisy. And by the time I'm through, you will be quite loud. Why ye, Vakebi said, grabbing frantically at the object now in her lap and lifting it to the moonlight. A hotel key, nearly identical to the one she left in her clothes, but the room number on it was definitely not her own.
You best hope those walls are noise-proof then, Miss Shinobi,
Vakebi murmured as she lifted herself out of the tub. Tonight would definitely be the thrill she had longed for.